And he brought something up to me earlier. I used to do this thing at third base at Westminster when I was over there, where I forgot who I saw do it, man. I think it was like I don't know who it was, but I used to mess up the baseline around third base, where this guy was telling me, huge douchebag move when I like looking back, but there was an advantage that I actually saw it working, and it actually there were plays that umpires were like, terrible in high school all the time.
Yeah.
So I would used to mess up the line, and our huge rivalry was Florida Christian, which was his uncle.
Yeah, you guys played each other.
Bro, he hated me for doing that for sure. And I hadn't even thought of that in years because I never did it in college because we had turf. But man, I would do that every single game.
It's a little thing.
And he would always put the line back, and like I'd do it again, and we'd always get into battles over that, man.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the One of One podcast by Elite Recruits. Today I have an incredible guest for you guys, someone with an incredible story and an incredible resume. College World Series champion, perfect game All-American in high school, state champion, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. This guy runs 2 successful companies right now in 2 completely different markets, but the person he is the reason we're here today. This guy's an incredible human. Everyone that I've ever talked to has had only positive things to say. Julian Infante, man, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Appreciate that, man. Excited to get this going.
Yes, sir. I know it's been a little while since I saw you. How's everything going, man?
Everything's going well, man. Just staying busy, like we were talking about before, always learning, trying to continue learning. And then when you stop that, I think you feel like you're stuck. You feel like you're in a negative position, where I've learned that about myself. I'm always trying to check things off. And in those times where I might not necessarily know the exact direction, I'm doing the little things to try to keep things going, and then things start picking up and you start feeling busy, more positive, and things continue to go in a direction that it wouldn't go unless you start doing more things. So.
Absolutely. And I'm a guy myself that I think I'm busy right now, but I can't even imagine what your schedule is like. Kind of before we even get into it, I want to know, like, how are you keeping up with everything, man? Because I know you got a lot going on.
Yeah, man. No, it's like everything, you know. You try to just maximize your days and be as productive as possible, and you get caught up in, there's a lot of that, right? Like you could say, you know, you're doing a bunch of different things and you're productive and you look busy, but the reality of it is like, what are you actually doing that's of value? And what are you checking off your list that is actually productive and benefits, you know, the next day? And it actually is impactful. Because I've been caught up where I'm doing a million different things and you're busy, but then I'll look back and I'll be like, damn, what is this? What is the purpose? Who am I helping? Am I actually impacting people? Is this what I want to be known for 30 years from now?
So, like, what does a guy like you, what's your schedule look like nowadays during the week? Because I know right now, I'm very grateful that you're taking the time out of your Monday afternoon to be here.
Yeah.
What does your schedule look like?
Today we had a closing, which was nice, at 3 o'clock. I wasn't there. I don't necessarily have to go to the closings. I work with really good attorneys who handle that for me, and I've built relationships with that my clients are taken care of. But it's honestly, it changes just based on the day. I'm pretty much at like construction sites now. I've been learning a lot about construction and trying to get more into development. And then I'll do my pretty much real estate stuff. It really all depends what I have with the clientele. If I have showings, if I have marketing stuff, if I have the suit stuff, it really just all depends. And it's a lot of scheduling in on the back end and just making sure that I'm organized so that I don't forget something, because that's something that I think separates people, and how you, if you're taking care of your clientele, if you're showing up on time, if you're providing the service that they deserve, that separates you, where you're able to charge certain prices, whether you're able to get a recurring client. So, you know, as busy as you are, you just got to make sure you're staying organized and respecting that, you know, those things are what separates you over the long run as well.
Definitely. I think that scheduling ahead is huge, even for me. I feel like when I have my day scheduled out the night before, everything just goes so much smoother. Even a couple days before, it makes everything so much better. 100%. I always like to take it back. So let's take it back from the beginning. You know, your baseball career, we'll get to business after that, but kind of, what are your first memories of playing the game? Who introduced you, and what were those early years like?
Oof, something I haven't thought of in a while, for sure. I would say definitely my parents, of course. You know, that's what I think most people would say. But now, as I'm getting older and I'm at a point where I'm not too far away. I'm having the conversations about kids, which is scary.
Yeah.
Anybody, any kid, any guy, you know, I was playing in college years ago, and, you know, everything moves in a second. And, you know, I started having those conversations now about having kids. And I look back at what my mom and dad did for me, taking me to baseball, you know, starting at 3 years old, and the amount of lessons, games, sitting in Miami traffic, trainers, hitting lessons, the money spent, the tournaments. I look at that, I'm like, dude, that's exhausting. To think that I would have to do that for my kid, it's like, man, there's so many different things going on. And, you know, I don't have kids yet. And once I do, I hope that I would feel like, you know, so, you know, excited to be doing that. But I'm looking at it from this perspective, like, man, the fact that they did that for me, and the fact that they held me accountable, they taught me, you know, the importance of consistency and work ethic. You know, I'm very grateful to them, and I think that's translated into, you know, me growing up and how I am in general. So.
For sure, that's exactly what I was gonna say. That sometimes, you know, gets overlooked because we're so busy. You know, we sometimes forget to be grateful, but all those things are kind of what shaped you to be who you are today.
Yeah.
All that hard work, all that energy that it takes, because it's a grind from an early age. Obviously, you're very, very talented. At what age did you kind of start figuring out, okay, I'm pretty good at this. I can do this for a good time?
Baseball-wise, man, I think I always played up when I was younger, and I don't think I was a star until or at least one of the better players, until I started playing my age group at like, you know, 11 or 12 years old, and started having some success. And baseball's a weird sport, man. One day you're a good player and you're confident, you're feeling great, and then it's very easily switched where you're 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. And I've had plenty of those days, and you're like, damn, I forgot how to hit. So I think it was always a constant, like, you know, you're growing in a way where it's not always direct. It's everything's like, you know, it's growing and it's a cycle. And you know, ultimately everybody's got different paths and everybody grows in different ways. And for me, I don't know. I think it was always like, I never thought I was good. I was always like, how can I get better? How can I work harder? How can I not have those 0 for 3 strikeout days? And like, I never had that mindset of like, damn, I'm a good player. You know, you always think in a way because you have to have that confidence, but I think you have to be able to separate work ethic, especially early on. I have a different perspective once you get older and once you've covered the basics and get to pro ball, which I think I learned a little too late. But that's a different conversation entirely.
No, and that's exactly what I was going to say. When you don't have that mindset that you have to keep getting better and you kind of get satisfied with some results, the game finds ways to humble you, those 0 for 3. Okay, take me to your high school years. I know obviously you went to a very historic high school. You got the chance to win a state championship. Take me through those years.
I was very blessed to be in a program where I had a lot of guys above me that did things the right way, a lot of great coaches that pushed me with work ethic, supported you. I had times where I was struggling on the field, and they were the first people to tell me, dude, Caballo Emil was always the guy who hyped you up, and he was my coach at Westminster, and he's still there. He's the best. And now a friend of mine, you know, for the rest of our lives. But very fortunate to have people that understood the game, a lot of mentors of mine that were 4 years older that had a lot of success, and I got to see their work ethic. I got to see he was the last guy. This guy, David Thompson, he's a friend of mine to this day. He's, you know, he's now about to have a baby. That's, you know, another conversation. But he's always been a mentor where when I was in high school, when I was a freshman, I would watch him. He was the last guy in the cages, and I'm like, this guy's leading the state in home runs, and he's got the craziest work ethic, goes around the weight room, does things the right way. I need to do that. I need to challenge myself and try to do it better. How can I do that? How can I be around this guy? That's somebody that's going to push me. I need to be working like that, try harder than that, or at least do that bare minimum. So fortunately, I had a lot of great people that I see shape, that the vision shaped me into, I guess, what I was. And I think I just followed that recipe and pushed myself in that sense too.
And it sounds to me like that's exactly what you did, because you ended up leading the state in home run as well. You held that record for a long time. It was 13, right?
Yeah, at the time, yeah.
How was that season for you? Can you remember that?
It was good, man. I would say, and something where I learned later on, my mind was very clear. And when hitting is the hardest thing to do in any sport, and I'll take that to the grave.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about different things, if you're thinking about mechanics, if you're thinking about your hip, if you're thinking about your shoulder, if you're thinking about your timing in the box, you're done. And I'll say that year in high school, I was very clear-minded. I had a very simple approach. I was very confident, and I knew what I was doing going into the box. Whereas, when you start thinking about naturally, when things aren't going exactly how you feel, you start thinking more mechanically.
Yeah.
You start thinking outside of the present, and the results then trickle out, and you're not as successful. So I'd say a lot of it was just being clear-minded and sticking to a plan and trusting how hard I worked.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that you see in common with all the best players in the game, that they keep it simple. They trust all the work that they put in before. Once they're there, they're just having fun, clear-minded, and that's how you really have success for a long time.
Yeah.
Take me through your recruiting process. That's something that we have to talk about. Obviously, very highly touted prospect coming out of high school. How was your recruiting process for you? Was it always Vandy? Kind of take me through that whole process.
It wasn't always Vandy. I knew I always wanted to try to go to a school where education was dominant, and then sports was obviously dominant. I'll say that was definitely on the front of my mind. I took a visit to UNC, one visit, and then I went to Vanderbilt, and I was going to go to Stanford. Those were the three favorites at the time. I never necessarily wanted to go. I knew I didn't want to go to UM, even though it was such a great program at the time, but I wanted to get outside of Miami. And had a good perfect game tournament.
Yeah.
We were talking about that before. Vandy was there. I knew from the start the players that were there. I went to we call it training session, not practice. We call it training over there at Vandy. And the energy was different. There was movement, there was energy, there was accountability, and I knew that's what I wanted to be a part of. So it's a pretty easy decision. I'll say I would probably encourage kids to take more of a time than trying to commit so fast, because there's no need to. There's never a need to be pressured in that situation. If you're a good player, you will end up at the place you should be at. There's no need to rush things. You shouldn't be worried about another third baseman in the recruiting class, another first baseman. At the end of the day, you're your own player. You're going to be at the school you should be going to, and you should trust that and be confident in yourself as a player knowing that.
That was beautiful, and that's one of the things that we like to harp on. Embracing the uniqueness in your journey. A lot of guys, especially in today's age with social media, see the guys committing in 8th, 9th grade before even playing varsity, and they're like, "Oh wait, I'm behind." You're not behind. There's guys in the major leagues that went the JUCO route, guys that didn't have offers coming out of high school. Everyone's journey is so different. You just have to embrace the uniqueness in yours and take it as far as it's going to take you. But that's not taking your vision outside of yourself and focusing on others.
100%.
So, won the state championship. Then, obviously, very touted prospect, committed to Vanderbilt. The draft comes around for high school guys. How was that process for you? I know you had to make a very difficult decision. Kind of take me through that as an 18-year-old. That's definitely not an easy decision to make.
It was emotional. It was. I'm not going to lie. It was something where you get, money comes into the picture, and you get offered X amount of money, something you've, not necessarily seen before. And I was always, what I tell people is I was 18 years old, so looking back, I'm probably not the best person to make that decision. But I always knew deep down what I wanted to do, and that was go to college. And you make it hard on yourself with a lot of decisions in general. You're like, man, what if this happens? No, I know I want to go to college. But what about this? You ask this person for their advice. No, I want to go to college. And I'll tell you, even my dad at the time, my dad was who I went to for most of for pretty much everything regarding baseball in that sense. And, general guidance and all that. And he was like, Julian, this is a significant amount of money. There's a lot of risks that can be taken. And the truth is he was right. Baseball perspective, I went to college. I didn't end up signing for $1 million. Now, the lessons that I learned at Vandy, I truly believe over the long term, I'm going to, whether it's monetary, whether it's success, whether it's however the world deems it, I know for a fact I'm going to be way more successful than if I would have taken $1 million out of high school, for a fact. And I take that, I'll take that to the grave. But the truth is, baseball-wise, and if that was going to be the rest of my career, I should have probably taken $1 million out of high school, and I would have been in a good situation. And who knows? But I know that long term, it was better that I made that decision, and I knew I always wanted to make that decision and go to college.
Exactly, and that's something that a lot of people struggle with. I mean, imagine as an 18-year-old, but having that long-term vision and betting on yourself, knowing that, plan A was go to college and then sign pro for more than that or even a higher round. But life takes you and God takes you in different paths that at the end of the day, it still works and it's still the right path. And making that decision as an 18-year-old, it couldn't have been easy.
Crazy, man. No, we're so honestly, I don't want to say dumb, but we are dumb, just inexperienced, just no grasp on reality, on what comes with, the risks associated with it, what our lives are going to look like 3 years later, what it actually means playing college baseball. Because that's not easy, man. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it where you get on campus, you're like, damn, this is shit.
And that's exactly where I wanted to go to next. But before we even get to that, so how's the phone call? Well, first of all, how do your parents react when you said that you're going to college? Were they supportive, or is it like, are you crazy, Julian? That's a lot of money.
I mean, honestly, man, it was pretty divided. And my parents were, the truth was, my dad was not necessarily happy about it, and my mom was supportive either way. Where for me, it wasn't the easiest thing at the time, but again, I was 18 years old, and I knew my dad was going to support me, and he always does, regardless of the situation. And it was a tough decision, but it's something where you make the decision, you got to roll with it and move on and make the best of it. So, it goes back to it. I could have made that decision, gone and played baseball, but who knows? And hindsight's always 20/20, and I could have very easily broken a kneecap and playing baseball in the minors, and not gone to college and been in a different situation with a signing bonus of whatever with no education.
Exactly.
So
and that's one thing that, money aside or anything aside, the education, that's something no one can take from you. Yeah. Vanderbilt is one of the best universities in the entire country. You get there as a freshman. Talk to me about your first time stepping on that field. Obviously played for a legendary coach. I'm sure there was extremely talented guys on that roster coming in as freshmen and already on that team. Yeah. How surreal was that experience getting there?
Definitely very special. I do want to touch, because I think I made a point where I don't necessarily agree with. I don't think education, like college perspective, it's that, I'm going to say valuable. Yeah. The truth is, I don't think many people learn much in college. And I went to a great university, and Vanderbilt was amazing, and I was around brilliant people. But I'll argue that, whatever industry you're in, whether you're a consultant, whether you're in banking, you're in accounting, real estate, most of it is done and actually learned through real life experience. So the value and the maturity that I got, I think, came from being on the baseball team, learning from Coach Corbin, learning how teams operate correctly that leads to success that does translate into business. But as far as like literal technical job skills and, the education that I learned, I think our college systems are not necessarily the best, where you don't really get the best experiences in learning. But I think the maturity that came from it, being around the baseball team, was definitely very special, very impactful. And I'll deem a lot of my personal business success and long-term success that I hopefully have by doing these types of things towards being a part of that baseball team.
Yeah, no, and that's something I'm really glad you touched up on, because that's something I agree 100%. For some people, it is important to go to school. They kind of need a system to keep them together. But for the majority of people, you just need real life experience. And that's something that, the education system, it is what it is. But if you just have an idea and you have a goal in mind, and you just put a foot down and start, you get such a long way just by trial and error and just going about it. Sure, you've done that, I've done that, but it's what it takes, and that's how you really get to levels that, you know, when you really start from zero and are figuring it out on your own, and you know, trying to get surrounded by the people that are the right people to be around, like yourself. In my situation, you're somebody that I genuinely look up to and I admire a lot. But that's what it takes, just taking that risk and, you know, figuring it out. So how was that freshman year? I know you started off with an injury and then battled back from that. What kind of adversity did you face that first year as a freshman?
Yeah.
You know,
I think immediately, I mean, being a freshman in the program, you're exposed to a different speed of things, at least at Vanderbilt. You know, I can't speak for other programs. I think a lot of people say similar, that you're exposed to a speed of things and a part of an organization that does things at a different level, and the accountability is different. You have, you know, you're in class from 8 a.m. to 1:30, sometimes 3. Then you have to run to the baseball field. You're at practice from 3:30. There's mandatory early hitting because it's not optional, it's mandatory.
Yeah.
And then your scrimmage ends at 7:38. And then we had mandatory study hall hours after, and we had to get 8 hours a week. So then after the 7:30, we grabbed a quick dinner, had to go to study hall for an hour, 2 hours, did all our homework, and then the day restarted. So that's something where, you know, you're immediately an adult. You have to, you know, you can't mess around with that stuff, because then it translates to not playing your bench. You can't go to practice. So it's a different speed of things that you're not accustomed to, which you immediately have to grow up. Where, you know, in the minor leagues, you don't. You sleep till freaking 12 o'clock. You wake up, you go to the field at 1, 2, and you do it over again. You're there at the field for 4 or 5 hours, reset, play video games. You'll be on their computer, hang out with the guys, and do it again. So there's a maturity that comes from it that I definitely think you're thrown into, and it's a huge awakening experience. You know, but I definitely think things start to get easier like anything. When you've experienced it, when you've done it over and over, you're able to thrive in those environments. And like anybody in any freshman university, you got to be prepared for that change. It's something that's the reality of how it is.
And that's something that I wanted to touch up on, because you obviously played for a legendary coach that has turned so many young athletes into great men on and off the field. What is it about the way that he handles his program and runs it that has such a continued success, talent aside, but, you know, accountability and everything like that?
Yeah, I'd say he holds people very accountable. Standards are on another level. He has developed and understands a system where it does lead to success. And a lot of it is just details, man. There's a lot of small things in baseball specifically that if you're very good at, and you hold each other accountable, and you emphasize base running, you know, simple ground ball defense, landing throws, setting your feet, doing the proper footwork over a long season, doing those things the right way, you're going to be successful. But what happens in high school programs, what happens to, you know, not necessarily the best college programs, they don't understand that and don't necessarily put an emphasis on that. Where I would say Coach Corbin is the absolute best at doing that and holding people accountable and getting the best out of people, whether, you know, it's not always just on the baseball field, but it's just developing yourself overall as a person. Yeah. So I learned a lot from him, and I'm definitely thankful for sure.
Absolutely. I think, that's probably one of the biggest things you said, attention to detail. I think that goes universal, not just baseball, but in everything. Attention to detail, you know, in the hospitality industry, in real estate, everything overall, that focus and that attention to detail leads to so much more success. You know, for me today, like, I was 20 minutes late. I was embarrassed. That's not something that I enjoy. That's not how I do things, but it's the little attention to detail. I'm sure, you know, you're fine, but to me, that's a big deal because you're taking time out of your day. But I feel like if people just paid a little bit more attention to the details down the line, you keep doing that, that turns into something much bigger.
100%, man. And those things happen. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm late all the time, and it bothers me like crazy. And, you know, you forget things. Like, bro, it happens all the time. The problem is now, you know, like, how can you avoid that, and how can you try to do things to keep yourself organized long term? And it's just minimizing, because it happens to everybody, bro. Especially when you're doing a million different things. You're an entrepreneur. You're hustling. You're doing whatever it is. There's little things that, unless you put systems in place, unless you even have an assistant. And now that we're young right now, we can't afford having assistants. We can't afford having a team of whatever doing all these different things for us. So it's just a lot of organization, making checklists, having calendars, that sort of stuff, and that's where it separates you. So now, next year you have 5 assistants that are doing everything for you.
Exactly. And that's something that I'm sure at Vanderbilt you had no other choice but to have an agenda with so many different things going on and everything. So we get through freshman year that you come back hurt, finish a strong year. Sophomore year, you have an amazing season, hit over 300, took the team really far. I don't want to skip that. I want to give you kudos to that. But what I'm really focused on is after that, your junior year, and it's your draft year again. What kind of expectations did you have coming into that year?
Yeah, I had, same exact ones. I think my mindset was I definitely was confident. I don't want to say my head was in, I don't think I ever let my ego get to me, and I think in an unhealthy way. But I definitely had high expectations, and I saw it all through. Out of high school, I was like, all right, I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to go out of my junior year. I'm going to go in the first round. I'm going to dominate my junior year, and that's not how it worked. Yeah. But I did have that mindset going into the season, and I completely forgot to hit that season. The truth is baseball that year, I felt I hadn't struggled hitting wise. I think my entire life, where I had to face adversity like that. And then that year, it just all hit, and I have some other things that went into it, but the fact is I wish I would have told myself, listen, you've been doing this for years. Don't listen to this person. Don't listen to anyone else. Don't think about this. Have that clear mind, that confidence. That's all you have to think in the box. And everything else, mechanically, you don't have to change anything. You don't have to do this. Just go back to what you've been doing for 20-something years, for 20 years at the time. There's no need to try to change anything. Yeah. And I wish I would have truly told myself that or understood that when I was going through it at the time.
Yeah. No, and then obviously that's a ton of adversity that you face going into the year, working super hard, but having big expectations of yourself. Kind of how did you manage that adversity that you went through, and how did you keep providing for your team?
Yeah, I'd say, so that year, man, I had some, family stuff that went on before the year. And then I had some, basically just some mechanical stuff that I changed in my swing because I thought it would take, I had listened to somebody with, great intentions, and I thought it was going to get me to another caliber of hitting, right? And I think any mechanical change that was so drastic that I listened to, I don't know many people that works for. Yeah. If somebody tells you if you're hitting one way your entire life and somebody says, hey, this is going to make it even better, drop your hands onto your shoulder, or stop doing this and do this. I don't know many people that's worked for. Now, I can't say that for everyone, but that was the case with me. And I did listen to someone. I did change my stance completely, and it just messed me up, I'll say, completely. And I never went back to just my own mechanics, my own way of hitting. But in terms of dealing with that adversity, I think and we talk about it a lot of Vandy, I focused more on the team, and I still worked. I had the craziest work ethic that year, and it didn't translate onto the field. Baseball's a weird sport. I was taking the most reps in the cage, which probably wasn't the best thing to do. Yeah. I want to say probably focusing on being a better teammate, because there were times I sat that year, which I should have, in theory, the perfect world, I was playing every game my junior year, leading the team, blah, blah, blah. But I got benched a few games because, I was struggling. I was hitting terrible. And the point is all right, how can I now still be a good teammate and be a good example when I suck and I can't hit? And I didn't let my identity necessarily be consumed by that, but naturally it was. Going through that struggle when you're expected to be doing so well, it was not the easiest thing, but I did kind of put a face on and did fake it a little bit to try to get my teammates, in the best position. I kept playing defense like I had to. But it was definitely tough, for sure. Baseball struggling is not the easiest thing. It's very mental, for sure.
Definitely. And the reason I asked you that is because one of the big things we like to touch up on here is, obviously facing adversity. But one, too, is that God doesn't give you a battle that you can't overcome and that, you can't thrive from. And obviously you thrive from that, because I have a quote here from your coach, Tim Corbin, that says, if there was a definition of great teammate, Julian would be attached to it. He is rare. He puts his personal needs to the side when it comes to the team. He has been a consistent workhorse in our lineup since his freshman year. Most impressive last season was his ability to add to our team's success regardless of his performance. We are very lucky to have Julian back for his senior year. The relationships he creates with every single player on the team are very special and don't come around that often. He exemplifies what it means to be a Vandy boy. What happened that next year? Senior year.
Yeah, it was special. We we did things the right way. We had fun. I think that team was, being a part of that was special, man. You see things click. You see young guys. You see old guys. You party together. You work out together. You're clicking. Everything is just on, and you're having fun, but you're also holding each other accountable, and you're protecting each other. And Corbs, again, is one of my biggest mentors, and we had dinner the other day, and I genuinely, a lot of the stuff with my suit company, what we stand for and what, I've learned is, a lot of it has come from that. And it's how he held men accountable and behaving the right way, doing the right things, being truly what a man should be. And a lot of those things do translate to success. It translates to business. It translates to relationships, so many different things. And I am very grateful for that. And it did, a lot of those things, being mature, being a senior, you're able to help others on the team kind of understand that. And we had a really good group of older guys, and it translated really well. And clearly it translated well. We won it that year. So.
Yeah, won the College World Series. And not even to skip on that quote a little bit, but after reading all that, one word comes to mind, and it's just character. That whole quote just defines you and your character and what you're about, and clearly it showed that next year by winning the College World Series. How was that experience like? Because that's something that not a lot of people ever get to say they've done.
Yeah, man. I'd say the first thing, character-wise, everybody messes up in many ways, and everybody's got their weaknesses, and everybody struggles with so many different things. But, it's just understanding, all right, how can I'm a normal person. I deal with those things, and everybody has their things. It's just, how do you, okay, I did it. All right, next, move on. How can I improve this? Or, oh, I said this, I learned this, and I haven't learned this. How can I improve this? How can I check myself? How can I make myself better? How can I hold myself accountable? And I struggle with that all the time, man. My relationship, I learned a bunch from my wife, where I didn't necessarily see things a certain way, or I didn't learn things a certain way that she might have, or she might have not seen me. And you have to be exposed to different people and go through different experiences in order to mature and develop character. And you never stop developing that character and learning, because if you think you have and you lose that humility, and Corbin used to talk about innocence. He used to say, once players, which happens in professional baseball all the time, unfortunately, that's why it's a little different. But once you stop losing that ability to learn, I think it leads to more failure. It leads to not being successful. Teams aren't doing as well. Relationships aren't doing as well. A bunch of other things like that.
And even from a more basic standpoint, I feel like when you start losing that humility, you kind of lose your true identity. You get caught up by a little bit of success, but a little bit of success, like we talked about, baseball will humble you, and life will humble you even harder. So I think that's beautifully said. I think keeping humble, but always learning and always wanting to grow, it goes such a long way.
100%.
So that year, obviously, won the College World
Series. I didn't answer your question, man. My bad,
good.
bro. It was very special. It was. I was around some freakishly talented guys, and they're still friends of mine to this day. And now seeing these guys in the big leagues, super cool to see, and we'll still stay in touch all the time. And the being on that team, for me, it's like, wow, there's a recipe to success that translates to baseball, that translates to business, that translates to really everything, that a lot of people don't do. And it's very, it's cool to see, and it's interesting to see that people, that may never have been exposed to it. And I don't want to say that, I would have if I wouldn't have seen it in college, but there's definitely such cool things. And you saw it play out over a period of time, and seeing it all come together my senior year was awesome. But bro, it was great. We were going out together. All of us were going out together, the entire team. The freshmen are hanging out with the seniors were taking care of the freshmen. We were probably going out that year more than any other year. And the next morning we were having conditioning together. It's hilarious. And all of us are freaking, having a blast, laughing it off, but like still so focused, working together, having fun. It was special, man.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously talent is already there, but building that true family environment where a lot of times you see the freshmen kind of get left behind or picked on, when you have that family environment, that flourishes really well. And
100%.
Obviously it did. I'm kind of mad you didn't bring your ring out today. I would have loved to see
man,
that.
I haven't taken that out much. I actually got like the biggest one because I never wear it, and rather just put it in a box in my office.
Smart,
and just display it like that. So
I got to come by the office one of these days.
For sure, man.
But okay, so let's transition a little bit then. Obviously, you finish your career there on a very high note. Get to pro ball, get selected by the Marlins in the draft, your hometown team. What's your first taste of pro ball? I know it was 2019, kind of going into the next year was a pandemic year and the season got canceled. But what was your first taste?
It was weird, man. I would say my full experience with professional baseball was kind of limited with COVID. I kind of chose to do that myself too, just exiting into business world, and I liked it. But when I was in the minors, first got drafted, I was in the middle of nowhere in Batavia, New York. I'd say I'd never want to see that place ever again. That place was not fun at all, but I was around a great group of guys. We had a lot of fun. I'll say it's not college. I'd say it wasn't the experience I had where it's business. It is a business. Yeah. Professional baseball is unfortunately, it is a business, and it's a dream that I had to play my entire life. And what you have to do as a baseball player is you have to take that part away and understand, like, bro, you're here. This is what you've dreamed of doing for a very long time. And it's challenging. It's like everything. Once you, like the realities of college baseball, it's challenging. Your schedule's crazy. It's a lot of work. And I think professional baseball, it's not so much of a challenge with like working all day and like that grind. It's more of a grind of just like you're doing the same thing every day. You're staying in the minors in a terrible city most of the time. Sometimes there's cool cities that you travel to, but
the traveling too.
It's not as like luxurious as you may seem to think, and it is challenging because, man, I have friends of mine that are 29, getting close to 30 years old, still like on the borderline between minors and the big leagues. And bro, the guys are studs. The guys have had great seasons. They should be big leaguers, but baseball doesn't work out that way because the guy in front of them has a $100 million contract. Yeah, he's hitting 220, but they're not going to bring that guy down. Yeah. So there's a lot of things like that you don't necessarily understand, and it's not always it doesn't always make sense because it's a business. Like I'll say coaching in professional baseball, it's not so much real coaching, it's more coming from the ownership on what decisions are made. And a lot of that is just because the owners don't want to spend money because they want to get a certain return on their team. So as a coach, you're like, dude, how do I coach players with that in mind? How do I hold a guy accountable who's getting paid $50 million a year? That guy can basically tell a coach to go fly a kite. So it's challenging, man. It's the truth, and that's the real world we live in. But, me looking back, and as a player in the minors or a player going through with that mentality, don't lose the innocence for the game of baseball and screw all that. Screw all the owners. Screw all the players that, a lot of players bring that up. I brought that up in conversations like, bro, this isn't fair. This is whatever. Screw all that. Just go out and play, and the results will take care of itself from your talent and your results on the field.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that it is a very much business once you get to that level. Even now at the college level, we are starting to see that with the NIL, that it's becoming a little bit of a business. But once you get to pro ball and you see all that stuff, and especially if not a first rounder, it's really difficult for all the guys beneath that, and you can lose your love for the game kind of quick. And how did you start transitioning into I know you've always been very business minded. I know even the pandemic you're doing something with drones, I believe. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But how did you start transitioning into, okay, I want to start my career. This is what I want to do. How did you transition out of baseball? Because that's something that I even struggled with myself, and I'm curious to know how that came about.
Man, I always thought my entire life baseball was going to be my sole job, sole passion, sole everything, and I worked at it like that, and I never thought any different until my junior year. Yeah. And that's where my eyes kind of were opened, where I'm like, it wasn't necessarily like my path is different, but it's like, damn, bro, I cannot be successful at this sport. Yeah. I always worked, and I always wanted to learn and make money. That was always something that, to be honest, a lot of people like, oh, you shouldn't go into things like, yeah, I want to make money. Like I want to be able to do this, and I understand there is a value in making money because, bro, you have family. You want your family to be comfortable. I've seen struggle. I've seen success, and there's, good and bad that comes with it. But the truth is I want to make money, and that's where a lot of my passion came from working. Yeah. And I'll say that mindset and switching over came from just trying things and being like, all right, man, I'm still going to play baseball, but let me learn some new things. Let me start trying to make money. I'm working when we were working out with Nick, we'd go for 2 hours, we'd work out for 2 hours, and then we'd hit for another hour, 2 hours, and then we'd take ground balls, and that's 5 hours, 6 hours. And that's pushing it. That's a lot. Yeah. And then what else do we do for the rest of the day? We're in the minors. So I'm like, man, I got to start working. I got to do something. And I just started to enjoy it, man. I started liking building a brand. It started going well. And I'm like, you know what? I could continue and go back and keep playing in minor league ball, or I can get started with my life. And it's not getting started with your life, but it's
the second chapter.
Yeah, and it's something different that I enjoyed.
Yeah, and that's something now I'm really excited to talk about this part. Kind of got the baseball out of the way, but let's talk business. I want to talk about how your company got started, and how it came to what it is today. I know you're in the real estate game and the fashion game. Kind of talk me through the real estate first. Kind of how did you get started and what it is today?
Yeah, and that question, it leads to, a lot of my baseball friends will reach out to me. I think a lot of guys, everybody's career ends at a different point. Yeah. And, now we're older. I'm 27 now. Wow, it's bad when I'm forgetting my age. I'm 27 years old. And, there's friends of mine that were in the minors that now are retiring. There's a guy who I played with in Cape Cod. The guy's a stud pitcher. And he just got signed actually yesterday to a big league team. And he was talking to me a few days before about, hey man, how is the professional world? How can I get started in real estate? What do you think about that? And I have these conversations with guys that I've met, some guys that I've never spoken to before, and some guys that I've known for 20-something years, whether it's about real estate, whether it's about, hey, how can I get started in a different career? And what I tell everyone is just get started on something, because I did not think I was going to be a real estate broker when I got started, nor do I plan on being one for the rest of my life. Absolutely not. But I like it. And there's a way and there's an opportunity to build a business, which I saw, and I had some success, which I never would have experienced unless I got started. And I've done jobs and I've worked with people where you think it's going to go great and it goes terribly, or you think it's going to go terribly and it goes great. So unless you experience it and give it a try, you're never going to know, whatever industry you're in.
And that's exactly what we were talking about before we started recording, that a lot of people have an idea or they have something that they want to chase, but they don't take that leap on just getting started. Kind of like this thing. I had no idea what I was doing, but I got started and still learning every single day. And every time you see some growth and some success, you kind of become addicted to it, and you want to continue to grow and everything. And now you're what I call a serial entrepreneur, like me. You see a vision, you have a plan, you make that plan and you take action. Kind of talk about your suits as well, because I know that's something that you're still building up and it's continue to grow, and I'm excited to hear that.
I'd say exactly what you said, man. It is addictive, because when you're passionate about what you do, when you have an idea and you take action and you do it, there's a reason for getting up in the morning where I've done work and I still have to do work and I've had jobs where I'll wake up and it's like, yeah, you're making money, but man, you're miserable because you're, behind a desk or you're not doing what you actually care to do and you're not able to brand yourself. And I'll say there's a point in time where everybody has to do that because you have to sacrifice. But the reason I like entrepreneurship is because you're doing something where you don't necessarily see the outcome, but you're passionate about it. Yeah. And over a long period of time, you're living in a way where you truly are able to express yourself and do what you love and build something that's your own, where you can't necessarily do working for somebody in an office setting, looking at a desk, having to sit there all day. And that's where I truly feel passionate about what I'm doing. And then specifically with the suits, man, it's exactly what you said. It was an idea that came to mind. It was a friend of mine where we had similar ideas, and he's a very big entrepreneur and has had a lot of success from his side. Very smart guy, best friend since 4th grade. And yeah, it's crazy, man. And we've worked together on this suit company from an idea, took action, different conversations, and it's become, we truly plan in a few years to be competing with some of the biggest luxury companies in the world. So that's where our mindset is. That's where we see our trajectory growing, and we're very excited about it for sure.
100%, but that's what it takes, taking action and just getting started. I know you told me that. Kind of explain a little bit more what you guys have going on this weekend. I know you said in Arizona, an event. That's huge, man. Too.
Yeah. So a lot of our success has come just naturally from clientele that I've played with, fortunately. And we've now developed a brand, and we're going to continue to develop a brand that stands for something, which we're going to be unveiling soon and talking about a little bit longer. But we're very excited about it. We're having an event in spring training, just going to be a celebration of our collection. We just came out with a very high-end Italian fabric suit that we are releasing probably next week, which we're very excited about. And it's just going to be a celebration of that. Get some of the clients together, have a good time, talk about the brand, and that's it, man. That's it. Excited.
That's beautiful. But that comes from what we keep repeating, just getting started, having that vision. Now, what would you say to, athletes that were like us, that, love the game but are also business-minded? Would you recommend them to kind of start shifting their focus and splitting some time and learning what they want to learn and building themselves, or should they just be, all in on what they're doing until they're done doing it?
I would say, right, there's a fine line between so divided and being so focused, right? It's unhealthy to be obsessive in a way where you're just not. I was obsessive with baseball, and there's a healthy point in that, and you should be, but you should also always be educating yourself and always learning and always tapping into different things and seeing what piques your interest, seeing what knowledge you enjoy more, seeing what what you could get into. That doesn't mean it should affect your work ethic if baseball is your primary goal, and that was mine, man. I like to think my work ethic was harder than a lot of different people, and I'll say that, I will say that I did work harder than a lot of people. It didn't necessarily translate into 15 years in the big leagues, but I did work hard, a lot harder than a lot of people. But as far as experiencing different things, seeing different industries, you have 3 hours a day where you could be playing video games, or you could be working in real estate, or you could be starting a streaming company, you could be starting a podcast, having conversations, working under a mentor. I'm just encouraging people to try to have more of those thoughts, conversations with friends, versus just talking about golf or just talking about, sports or just, change it up a little bit and see what you're interested in. It doesn't necessarily have to be so obsessive into one thing,
Yeah, and especially today, I feel like even I fall victim to this sometimes, but with social media and the algorithms that kind of trap you, you start scrolling for a little bit and end up, spending an hour of time that you could have spent learning something else. And there's so much out there. You can learn anything you want on YouTube for free, find a mentor. And kind of how did you get started in, as far as like the real estate game? Was that something that you always knew you wanted to do after baseball, or like, let me try that and see what happens, and you ran with it?
Yeah, not at all, man. I'd say, my immediate answer for that was I got into real estate because it was flexible, and I thought I knew you could do it part-time and you'd be fine, but the truth is you absolutely cannot. But I understood the value in real estate, and I'll say a lot of our family, I'd say my family, a lot of people in general, where nowadays people are becoming more educated on passive income. Yeah. But just the protective, when it comes to risk of real estate, how safe of an asset it is long term, how most people become wealthy and keep safe investments through real estate long term. And when I'm, years gone and my grandchildren are alive and I'm passed away, they could still be making passive income from properties I've earned or investments I've made in real estate, where there's other industries and other professions where there's not so much of a direct translation, and it made sense to me and I understood the value. So I knew, whatever business I do in the future, I know real estate is going to be a very big part of it. So I dove into it, and I understood the value of it and always wanted to push it there.
And then obviously that's grown a ton since 2020 to now, and kudos to you because I know you've been working your ass off doing that.
Appreciate that.
If you had to start over today from scratch, like how would you go about it? Is there things that you would not have done that you think would have escalated you faster, or do you think you've built the right foundation? Kind of how would you go about it? Yeah,
man, I'd say it's challenging, right? Because I look back and I did, super cheesy videos, or I started a company with a partner that I may not have wanted to start. The truth is, and the reality of it is, if I didn't go through those situations and learn from those, I wouldn't necessarily be where I'm at today and have the knowledge that I went through, or the experiences, whatever it is. But what I would encourage someone to do, literally, I would say work for a mentor and learn from them in real estate specifically, learn how they do things, work behind them. A lot of the times, the bigger realtors, they can't manage all the leads that they get in. So if you're a good employee, they'll send you a lead, or they'll introduce you to a client of theirs, and they'll be like, look, do right by them, and I'll split it with you, or I'll give you, you take the full commission. I don't have time for that. You got it. And that's what I would recommend. But in any industry, like for me, I could have taken a job as a consultant out of Vandy and made whatever X amount of money per year, and then use that to fuel my real estate business and fund it that way. So there's different ways of going about things where I wouldn't have gotten the knowledge and the full-time experience as a realtor if I would have done that and then translated into real estate. Yeah. Who knows? So I would just tell people, find a good mentor, get started that way, and understand that you do have to be very committed to it, because it's not a business where you're going to be successful your first 6 months. You might not do anything. Literally, you might not do anything. I had days where I had no clientele, and I had one client, and it was a rental, and I was like, damn, bro, what do I do the rest of my day? Like, do I call people? Do I send out ads? But unless you try and experience it, you'll never know.
And that's something that I also wanted to touch on, because we were talking about it before we started recording too, is separating yourself from the outcome, right? A lot of people want to see those results. Like, they'll do a little bit of work and they expect the results to come right after that, but that's just not how the game of life works. Sometimes 100%. Even for me, I'll find a week that's really dry, but then the next week it's things start happening, but it's because of the work that I did previously. Mm-hmm. And now more than ever, I've learned to just separate myself from the outcome, focus on what you can do, the inputs, and then the rest takes care of itself, down the line.
100%. I'd say on that point, I used to whenever I'd see, there's highs and lows in life, there's highs and lows in business, there's things that you can't control. And as long as you're doing the right things over a long period of time, it is going to be successful. Yeah. You don't always see it up front, but referrals come, business comes, whatever it is. So whenever I start feeling like I'm stuck, I have a checklist. I call it my execution checklist. Yeah. And I'll have 20 things that in different priorities that I know I have to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, all right, I'm stuck right now, or I don't have deals coming in, but if I do this today, I know I'm taking a step forward into becoming successful. Yeah. And you just keep checking things off that list, and it's going to lead to growth, and things are going to start coming around, and then it starts accumulating, and you don't feel stuck. Yeah. Where a lot of the time feeling stuck, it's like, all right, what's the next step I'm going to take? Take a step. And until you take a step, you're screwed. You're just going to be stuck in a situation, not doing anything, and you're going to feel stuck. You feel depressed. You're confused. You have to take action in order to get out of all that.
Yeah. And even if it is the wrong action, you don't see that result, but you learn from that, and then you don't make that same mistake over.
I definitely don't want to do that. All right, let me do this now.
Yeah, 100%. And how much do you feel, because you're killing it in the social media game, how much of an impact has that made in your success and everything? What would you recommend people do to
I would
start
say,
out?
fortunately, from COVID, you got to find how you want to brand yourself and what you want to portray, your brand. Are you educating? Are you this? Are you this niche? For me, when I started, it was, the understanding of getting a lot of content out there where I don't necessarily have to do now, and it's not always the best way to generate leads, where it does work for some people, and it does work for some algorithms and social media and all that stuff, but it's not the way that I want my brand to stand for. I'm trying to go for, I'm the more luxury route, where it's more posting, I think, less frequently, and it's now a different clientele and portraying a different image. And I think it's just everybody has to find it their own way, but social media is so important. And I'd say, honestly, like 80% of my clients have come from somebody being like, wow, you know what, I'm actually want to have a conversation with you, or wow, I've been looking for a little while, where I think now a lot of people are understanding the value of that, whatever industry they're in. And like even 5 years ago, 4 years ago, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, but that happened because of that step 1 and 2 quality, which goes back to the very beginning, attention to detail in the little things. I've seen your content. It's phenomenal, and I can't wait to continue to see you grow. So now I got to ask, what's next for Julian Infante in 2024 and beyond? Yeah,
man, I think it's the same stuff. I'm ultra focused. I started my own full brokerage it's about a month and a half ago, right at the beginning of the year.
Congrats to you.
Thank you, man. And a lot of it is I had my own company in the past with a partner. I've worked with all the big real estate companies. And the truth is, man, the agent is the one that does the work for themselves. And the big companies, you leverage their brand name, but the truth is you're the one that brings in your own business. And that bothered me a lot. And I wanted to start a brokerage where it wasn't predatory towards agents. You should make what you should make. There shouldn't be a huge split where the company's receiving X amount for doing nothing for you. So I'm really focused on building that brokerage and continuing to grow it, hopefully for the rest of my life. And then I'm very focused now with the fashion company. We've had a lot of cool success. A lot of people are liking what we're doing, and we're going to continue to push that, and we're very excited for it. I can't wait to see your continued growth and success, because I know there's going to be a lot of that coming with your work ethic and your character. And now that I'm here full time, I can't wait to see you a little bit more often and see you continue to grow. Man. And I got to get fitted for one of those suits. I need to buy a suit for next time to come in. We always wrap up the podcast with a question from the last guest. Today I have a question from you, from one of your good friends, Romy Gonzalez. And he wanted to ask you, when it's all said and done, what kind of person do you want to be remembered as? Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, I think about this often, and that goes back to something I said earlier. It's the stuff you do on a day-to-day. You get so busy, you're checking up on all these different things, and you're trying to make money. But I want to be remembered for someone that truly helped others, made an impact, and that's it, right? There's so many times I'm going to mess up. There's so many things that I don't know the answers to. But on a day-to-day, how am I helping people? How am I impacting? How am I making a difference now? And a lot of the times we think that it has to be the perfect timing, or you have to make a certain amount of money before you can help people. And that's what I've struggled with. How can I get started helping people when, I can't afford to do this, or I don't have time to do that? But there's always something that you can do in order to help others. And for me, that's the most important thing. Yeah, for sure. That was beautiful. Definitely. Julian Infante. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. It was fun. Much love. I appreciate you so much for taking the time. Definitely, man.